Good afternoon, good evening, students. I hope you are doing good. Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're back with another lecture concerning psycholinguistics. As you can see, it will be lecture number 3 entitled Language Loss or Aphasia. In today's lecture, we are going to see what is language loss, the definition of language loss, and we are going to talk about the signs or the symptoms of aphasia. I have 14 signs to discuss today. And then we are going to talk about the types of aphasia. We have 2 major types. And then to round off, we are going to round off with the cure of aphasia. Before I start, as usual, I invite you to like the Facebook page of this channel in order to be notified whenever I post something new. And also subscribe to my channel if it's not already done. That would encourage me to do more and also help you out during the period of exams. So with that being said, we shall start with what is language loss. So language loss is the degradation of language in the brain, okay? More precisely in the left hemisphere. As I explained in the previous video, that language is located in the left hemisphere. If you remember Wernicke's area, Broca's area, if you don't, I advise you to watch the video, the lecture number 2. This degradation of language leads to the inability to understand or produce language. When I say the inability to understand or produce language, it is both in reading and writing, okay? This may be due to an accident which affected the left hemisphere or result of a trauma, okay? So the reason why people have language loss, sometimes it might be due to an accident. So the part where language is located in the brain, which is in the left hemisphere, might be damaged. Therefore, there will be, or it results in this kind of language loss. Or it can also be the result of a trauma, something like shocked someone, and it will affect their brain, more precisely the left hemisphere. It might also result in language loss. So language loss is also given the name of aphasia. So whenever we say aphasia or language loss, you should know that it's the same thing. Then we move to the second point of today's lecture, which is the signs and the symptoms of aphasia. First, we have the inability to understand language. For example, the patient would take a long time to understand the difference between up and down. When I say up and down as words which contain, let's say, meaning. So this is something basic, something easy, but a person or a patient who is suffering from language loss would take a long time to understand the difference between up and down. Okay? Then the second point or the second sign is the inability to pronounce. For example, the patient is asked to pronounce a specific sound like E, long E in phonetics, in phonology if you want. But the only reaction we get when we ask them to pronounce that sound is the fact that they are opening their mouths, but they cannot pronounce it. Okay? This is the second sign. The third sign is the inability to speak spontaneously. Okay? For example, the patient wouldn't be able to use language as others do, especially in expressing themselves to talk about the easiest things, such as saying their names, for example. They will take a long time or some time before answering, okay? So just in other words, just to put it in a simple way, people who don't suffer from language loss, they will speak spontaneously. They do not have to think deeply in order to talk about something easy, something simple, okay? But someone who is suffering from language loss, even the smallest things, the easiest things, they are going to take a lot of time in order to express themselves. The fourth sign is inability to form words. This means that the patient or the patients in general face difficulties in forming words to express daily situations or answer simple questions. Then we move to the fifth sign, which is called anomia. Anomia is the inability to name objects, okay? The patient would use alternatives, okay, to name things that they encounter or use daily. So we have these simple things, these easy stuff that people use, for example, in their daily life. But someone who is suffering from language loss, although they are using these things daily, but they cannot name them anymore. Therefore, they are going to use alternatives, which means they are going to use language in order to express or to tell you about the thing that they cannot name. Example, the word spoon. If we grab a spoon, for example, and show them, and you tell them what is this, and they do not know the name of the thing that they use to eat every day, instead of telling you that this is a spoon, they will tell you it's a metallic thing that we people use to eat or something. This is an alternative in order to get the message or to pass the message for the others. Then the sixth sign is the excessive use of personal neologisms. Neologisms is basically the creation of new words. So they are going to create new words, okay, in order to describe objects. This is due to the fact that they have lost the words that they used to use before in order to name objects, okay? Then we have the seventh sign, which is the inability to repeat clear phrases. You give them, for example, a simple phrase or a sentence, something easy, something basic, but they cannot repeat after you. This results in the stuttering of patients. It's like they cannot get the words, they cannot get sentences out. Therefore, they will start stuttering, and this is also one of the major signs of language loss. And then we have paraphasia. Paraphasia basically is the fact that these patients, or those who suffer from language loss, they tend to change letters, syllables, and words. For example, instead of saying the word neat, okay, they will say teat, which means they replace the sound or the letter N with the letter T. Okay, so this is a matter of changing letters. Or another example, if you want, instead of saying billion, they might say cillion or fillion or whatsoever. Then we move to the ninth sign, which is agrammatism. As you can see, it is related to grammar. It is the inability to speak with correct grammar. The patient usually omits function words and verbs in sentences. For example, you say someone who suffers from language loss, they would say I home instead of I am going home. I home instead of I am going home. Some function words and verbs are omitted in their sentences. Then we have the 10th sign, which is related to the incomplete sentences. The patients who suffer from language loss, they have tendency not to complete their sentences. For example, they might tell you, we were going to, and then they just stop. Instead of carry on, like we were going to tell you tonight or something. Instead of finishing the sentence, they will just stop in the middle, and it will make no sense. But according to them, they have finished the sentence. Then you have the 11th one, the 11th sign, which is inability to read and write. They will lose the ability to read and write. This is something simple, no need to explain this. And then we have the 12th sign, which is difficulty in naming. Difficulty in naming, it's the fact that the patients cannot remember their names or the names of the people they know. For example, family, friends, etc. They cannot remember their names. Then we move to the inability to follow simple requests. Patients will not react to many requests. Like, for example, you tell someone who is suffering from language loss, you tell them to bring that glass of water, please. They will just stand there looking at you, being idle, doing nothing, because according to them, they cannot understand what you said. Okay, so this is also one of the symptoms, the major symptoms of language loss. And to round off with the signs of aphasia or language loss, we have dysprosody. Dysprosody is a matter of stress. Dysprosody. It is a matter of stress. Okay, when I say stress, it is in terms of phonetics. Okay, the patients who suffer from language loss cannot follow the right rules of stressing words. For example, when you say, I got you a present. Okay, I got you a present, meaning a gift. So the stress falls on the first syllable. as all people know, but those who suffer from language loss, they cannot follow those rules anymore. So instead of saying I got you present, they might tell you I got you present. So it might mean something else. To present, it's a verb, it's not a gift. Okay, it's a matter of presentation. So things might be confusing with others. So this is 14 signs of or symptoms of aphasia. Then we move to the types of aphasia. We have two major types. I advise you to watch the previous video in case you didn't, because the first one is called Broca's aphasia. I have explained Broca's area in the previous video along with Wernicke's area. So Broca's aphasia, also called motor aphasia, it is characterized by the fact that the patient suffers from huge loss of the amount of speech, which means they cannot articulate properly or quickly. Also, they need a lot of effort to produce speech, and sometimes we call them linguistically paralyzed. This means they do not have the ability to produce, pronounce, talk, and even write. Then we have the second type of aphasia, which is Wernicke's aphasia, also called sensory aphasia. This means that the patient can produce speech correctly, but it would be gibbering. And gibbering means nonsense talk, if you want. They have hard times to find the correct words for the right context and the right objects. They have also difficulties in reading. In addition to that, they also take a lot of time describing objects, okay, using words which are usually not related to them or to those objects. So this kind of explanation, extra explanation from those who suffer from Wernicke's aphasia, use some words that are going to gibber, okay? Like instead of saying a dog is an animal, they would say that a dog is not a human being. A dog makes a sound, but a dog cannot speak. So this is what we call Wernicke's aphasia. Then the cure for aphasia. You know, there is something that we call the SLT, which stands for Speech and Language Therapy. And basically in this SLT concept, speech and language therapists try to understand the nature of the patient's problem first, then they provide treatment, advice, and support, which means it takes time. It needs a cooperation between the patient and the therapist, speech and language therapists, okay? SLT aims to bring back the patient's speech and language as much as possible, to give them back their ability to speak again, and they also try to increase their activity to give them some confidence through communication. They also try to find alternate ways of communicating, like specific strategies and aids to make things easier, effortless communication. SLT aims for the fact that the patient needs to communicate effortlessly, because if the patient is trying to communicate using a lot of effort, this means that the therapy is not working properly. And the last goal or the last aim of SLT is to provide information to patients about aphasia and their relatives as well. This is it for today's lecture. I hope I have helped you. If you have any kind of question, feel free to ask them in the comments below, or also you can message me on the Facebook page of this channel. Otherwise, I tell you, see you in the next video. Peace.